The year is 2024, 4 years into the 2020s. Can you believe that it's been months since I've wrote that? I'm not changing that part whatsoever. It's now funny. Within that time, we've had about 3 live-action movies that did pretty darn great at the box office, a comic run that also gets a solid thumbs up by most people, a few games here and there that aren't exactly terrible, and a re-release of one of the better 3D games, with an entirely new game added, and a cartoon that's... well, the less I talk about it, the better. Things are looking pretty good for the Blue Blur in the past few years. And of course, one of the biggest things out of all of those was Sonic Frontiers. And well, if you know me, if I can make a video on it, that means I have quite a bit to say. Oh my god, I guess I didn't shut up. Look at the length of this. Oh, jeez. You see the title of the video, and probably know how I do things here by now. If not, hello. This is a general look and basically game review of Sonic Frontiers. Alright, even though the game is marketed as an open zone game, I'll still go by this in an orderly fashion, by starting with the synopsis of my thoughts overall. If you're strapped for time or your attention span is waning by the day, I am deeply sorry. My true feelings about Frontiers is that I liked it. Quite a lot, actually. Would I say I loved it? Maybe? My favorite? Probably. I'll go over why in more detail with the rest of this video. I truly did enjoy the game from start to finish, though I will say that there were a few speed bumps and a stop sign I wish I couldn't read so I could run it instead. Other than that, really sick-ass game. That's my thoughts on the game and a brief format. Now, I usually save the core part of the review until later, but I won't do that because there's a lot to talk about, so yeah. Gameplay. Obviously, Frontiers, compared to any other 3D Sonic titles, is completely different with its open world or open zone approach, where in previous games it was just level after level or level hub world level. And well, yeah, on paper and from trailers, it was definitely something new, but bizarre for sure. Hell, when this game was announced, I didn't even really have much of a reaction. I just thought, oh, new game. Okay. And just kind of moved on. Pretty sure I was going through my Devil May Cry phase then, so I definitely got distracted. Yeah. With Frontiers though, I oddly didn't get spoiled or hear much about it. All I knew was Sonic fights a giant robot or two, and that's it, so I guess it's another Tuesday in this series. But I digress. The typical stages that you would see in a Sonic game, they're here, they're very akin to Color's stage design, and surprisingly, I think it's universally agreed that these are the weakest part of the game, and I don't know how to feel about that. Is that us progressing as a community, or Sega stepping backwards yet again? A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Because honestly, yeah, the cyberspace levels, as they're called, are just painfully okay. But on a slightly deeper look, there are a handful of improvements that could have been made. Number 1, no more Green Hill. I'm sick of it. Please, I am begging you. Anything else. Same with Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary. Let them retire. The city ones were alright. So clearly the reuse of previous levels and aesthetics is still haunting us. The level design itself is not half bad, but sometimes you can tell that some stages were trying a bit too hard with having their own gimmick to it, and wow, it did not work. However, these stages were definitely made to be replayed over and over, either for your own satisfaction or better ranking, which gives you better goodies. So when you memorize what the layout is, you'll fly through it. Besides the need for something different with these kinds of stages, there's not much else to complain about. I take that back, there is something to complain about. Sonic's boost. Oh man, did it get viciously nerfed, only in these stages specifically, and it doesn't even really feel like a boost. You'll get the initial boost, but the actual maintaining of higher and faster speed is just not there. I don't know why. So it's not the craziest thing to just use the boost as a triple jump, because it also launches Sonic upward a bit while in the air. Again, these cyberspace stages aren't the absolute worst 2.5D has been in this series, but it's the weakest part of the game for sure. Alright, so not exactly coming out strong with this review, but we'll go from the weakest to one of the best parts of the game, in my opinion, of course. The open zone. Now, with it being Sonic, you're just going to have to get used to the idea of a grind rail being 20 feet above you in the air without it being attached to anything. My first impressions were that it's cool. That's about it. However, shockingly in practice, it kind of works. Why? Well, because of Sonic's speed and platforming. To me, one of the best aspects about Frontiers is just seeing something in the distance or on the map and wondering how you get there. You blast off at super speed to figure out how you get there, but then you get sidetracked by other platforming sections, enemies, or quote-unquote puzzles from Brain Surge. And then you see something else that catches your eye, and then you start homing attacking this, air trick there, fight these enemies, see a spring you didn't before, leading to a different path, and the cycle repeats. Little did you know, 40 to 80 minutes have just gone by, and you haven't gone back to the first thing that you went for. Oh shit, you were just immersed by the gameplay. The open zone was doing what it was supposed to do. Those moments of, oh, that's how you do it, or, oh, I didn't think this was here. That sense of freedom, getting lost, letting your curiosity and wind take you wherever you want to go. It's something I really do like about this game. Because, obviously, with it being the first open world Sonic game, there's not a lot of comparisons in the series prior. Closest are the hub worlds, but of course those are relatively small, and you're not taken back by the atmosphere or the surroundings. And because of all that, I think it did a pretty damn good job. Throughout all of the different areas Sonic runs across, he'll be met with different things to do on the islands, a lot of which is collecting small trinkets to further the story, upgrade Sonic, or enhance your enjoyment, which is how majority of the game is structured to be like. Talk to friends, cyberspace, get Chaos Emerald, boss. Pretty straightforward. Sometimes in between all of that, you'll do a mini game of some sort, and most of them are okay. And yes, I know about the pinball section later on. I mean, we all know it sucks, so I'm not even going to waste my time telling you why. It's not great. Anyways, just running all over the place on slopes, hills, and ancient ruins at Mach 3 isn't the only new thing Frontiers brings. It brings combat, as I loosely say that. I'll be truthful and say that I don't have much experience when it comes to dedicated open world games, so I don't really have the knowledge of what constitutes good or bad in this genre. However, when it comes to combat and action, compared to my friends, oh yeah, I'll take the badge for action game connoisseur. And Frontiers combat is a solid fine. It gets the job done. Does it need work? Yes. Is it as bad as people make it out to be? No. Fighting having a larger focus in Frontiers is something I do welcome to the series. In prior installments, it was alright at best, half-baked at worst, really. No doubt the Werehog from Unleashed is the only real contender in this category. However, as the Werehog, you can easily just smack and swing whoever got in your way without a care or thought in the world. And I'll briefly mention Shadow's gameplay from 06, which was more quote-unquote combat-oriented, which meant you press the homing attack 2-3 more times for each enemy. Frontiers gives you a whole skill tree to work with, but doesn't really mean much because you'll quickly have access to most of the moves halfway through the game. But that's also just fine, nothing to protest about. When people think about action in video games in this day and age, it's gotten a little muddled. You say combat, and some think of this.
You shall die.
And that's cool, but not every game with combos today needs to be a DMC5 clone. Instead of it being on the same grade as DMC4 or 5, it's more like the first Devil May Cry, maybe even the reboot, as in, you can't juggle every single enemy you see, but for those you can, it's used as a tool to make fights easier and give yourself some breathing room. While on top of that, by the later half of the game, you can't just necessarily button mash your way through. You got enemies with shields or spikes which require you to use Sonic's other moves to get around them, like the Psy-Loop, which is this game's new main technique Sonic uses, and sidebar, I like it. I think it's neat, and I do enjoy that it has multiple uses and can be used in fights, find objects, replenish rings, you do the infinity symbol, and it allows you to... Come on! There we go. Infinite boost for a time being. As for his other moves, Whoo boy, talk about an upgrade. Sonic no longer just uses his handy dandy homing attack. He's throwing hands, stomping them out, styling on these fuckers, shooting out energy blasts or whatever this is, which I think is a callback to Sonic Battle, so that's dope. All of these are cool, and if you really just take 2 minutes in the practice area, you'll see and understand what changed into what, and you can make some kick-ass combos. Now, I know that not everyone is BG, shout out to them, God among men. So for some, the combat can feel a bit stiff and unresponsive at times. I can sympathize with that. The game doesn't really take into account buffering attacks into one another, so if you pressed one button a second too quickly, you've ruined your combo. And that does take a hot minute to get used to. In addition, I would personally want a few more techniques that are multi-targeted. There is that stomp attack you can do that does decent damage, but I would still want different attacks in this field to have more variety or to spice it up. Pro tip, if you have the auto battle skill unlocked, turn it off or just don't fucking get it. It actually ruins fights. The way Sonic fights the smaller robots is awesome, but he's also used to fighting opponents larger than him. These are the Guardians, basically mini-bosses. So the standard kicks, bops, and parries, which is also new and slick by the way, aren't enough. And they're the definition of a mixed bag. It's like a simple spectrum. On one end, you got faster, tougher bots like Ninja, Shinobi, Kunoichi, which require you to, do what you're usually supposed to do. In the middle are the bigger, slower, stationary bots that more or less have a trick to them, where mileage may vary. I love Sumo and Spider, but Caterpillar and Tower are there, I guess. And would you look at that? A hedgehog has hit the second. Actually, you know what? No, we're not even going to finish that line. We can just edit that one out. My bad. And on the other end of the spectrum are the chasers or on rails, be it figuratively or literally. There's Shark, Fortress, Ghost, and Jesus. Ugh, Squid. At first they seem alright, but to me the main issue is that they last so long and you can't really speed up the process when you are chasing them. It feels like they last forever just to get in a couple of hits in and you do the whole thing over again, and God help you if you mess up at any point. Ugh, no thanks. Only saving grace is that you really only have to fight them like once and you can move on. When or if they make a direct sequel for these types of enemies, don't cut to the chase, just cut the chase entirely, and we'll be happy. Alright, but why is Sonic punching robots this time around? Well, it's about time that I get into the story, and whew, we got a big boy to talk about. Now, even though the story and tone is on the heavier side, you could say, I'm not going to talk about literally every line of dialogue characters have with each other. I'm better than that. But we'll still go over the main beats. It starts on the Starfall Islands with Eggman doing Eggman things, finding ancient power that could potentially destroy him and the world. Upon doing this, it was also a method for him to create and put his new AI daughter, Sage, to the test, a new character whom I'll talk about later. With Eggman discovering that lost power, it fires back. Sonic and gang also happen to get caught up in the accident, which leaves Eggman trapped in cyberspace, while Tails, Amy, and Knuckles are stuck in between that and the real world. There's a prequel animation that explains Knuckles' reason for being here, so yeah. Sonic managed to escape cyberspace, and because an ominous voice told him to do so, Sonic goes around the islands to shut down whatever virus is plaguing his friends, while also learning more about the Starfall Islands, which was a place inhabited by these little guys called the Coco, or the Ancients later discovered in their full form, learning about their history, architecture, leaders, and technology, which gets a little wonky when you find out that they were the original owners of the Chaos Emeralds, which leads into a handful of questions like, where does the Master Emerald come from then? Was it always on Earth? If the 7 and Master Emeralds come from 2 different places, then why do the Ancients and Chaos look similar? Do all aliens look like this? Well, that can't be true. The Black Arms exist. I just want to know. And don't worry, I'm not trying to be a nitpicking Nancy here. The Emeralds have always been able to do whatever and whenever for anything and everything. Hell, when Sonic isn't even in his usual world, there's bound to be some colorful rock or two that'll give him superpowers. I primarily bring it up because this game certainly wants to remind you that past events did happen, and I'll reiterate, I don't have a stick up my ass for this sort of thing, like some people. Why? Because it happened 20 years ago as well, and nobody complained, so what's the difference? But I think it's fine. It keeps the conversation going. Definitely gives some sense and idea that time does go on in the games, and these moments did occur. You can't tell me that the moon gets laser piss blasted with Sonic and friends acting like it didn't happen. Okay, well, you know what I mean, alright? I find it pretty cool that they're able to bring up their memories and adventures with each other. Certainly gives you the idea that the characters aren't just stuck in a time bubble. But that does lead into the next major thing when it comes to the narrative, the characters. Sonic and friends. And given the rather slightly more mature ambiance, the cast this time around aren't as goofy or colorful, as in they're not cracking jokes every other line, mainly due to their situation. There's of course the occasional one-liner or snappy dialogue that's always welcome in my mind. However, it isn't the only form of conversations the characters have with each other, mainly just Sonic. Though I will say that outside of cutscenes, when you are talking to anyone, I wish it didn't feel so, for lack of a better term, NPC-like. Characters just stand there with little expression or emotion to them, and for once, I will be a bit nitpicky about this, because I know we can do better here, as in over 10 years ago better. Look how vibrant and full of character Amy is here in Unleashed, even in Generations. It just shows how little acts like these go quite the distance. But outside of that, I think the characters themselves are good this time around. Amy still admires Sonic, but surprisingly is level-headed about the problems at hand, though it is a bit strange for the character known for having romantic feelings for the main guy, and not having it be present like almost at all is pretty odd, at least to the level that people kind of expect from her. I don't know if they were told to dial it back or something, but I mean, she's still fine to me. Not so sure how Amy fans feel about it though. They probably don't like it. Knuckles has this fun back and forth with Sonic that's honestly pretty refreshing, and Tails probably had the biggest turnaround since Forces, hell, dare I say even Lost World. And that's because he completely acknowledges how he screwed up in Forces, and how he should be better in these kinds of problems. Sonic reassures him that it's fine to feel rather discouraged, but as long as you're willing to learn from these mistakes, you will do better. And I do enjoy moments like these. It's been, damn, I can't even recall at the top of my head, of how long it's been since characters have had a real heart-to-heart with each other. You know, just talking while being themselves. Sonic even has a moment like this with Knuckles beforehand, with Sonic reassuring Knuckles from how he feels about being the last of his kind, but not alone. Sonic does it with everyone. He recalls the past with them, but looks forward to the future. Ultimately, it's them sharing a memory together. I like it. Everyone's cool, even Big the Cat. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's right, Big. I guess I'll talk about him real quick. So, Big's here. How? Just cuz. Why? Fishing, of course. Which is something you can do, and it's a nice little pace changer. The mechanic of fishing is fine, though I do find it funny how Sonic has a JRPG crit animation for anything he catches, and also funny enough, you can get a lot of the items you need here sometimes if you don't want to put in any of the work from the island itself. Level up items, portal gears, and even these Eggman memos he either keeps losing on purpose or is way too clumsy.
I'm deploying my most advanced artificial intelligence into the ancient network spanning the Starfall Islands. I've codenamed it Sage. Sage will take over the alien network, take control of all its resources, and give them to me. Once I'm out of here.
These are insights of what Eggman also thinks about cyberspace, Starfall Islands, and some other cool details. Because for most of the story, he's stuck there. And really his only way out is from the help of his newest creation, Sage. And right off the bat, I like Sage. She for sure brings a different dynamic to not only Eggman, but to Sonic as well. Because compared to, say, Metal Sonic, and I'm sorry, Metal fans, for when I say this, he's kind of just there most of the time to get his head bashed in and call it a day. At least with Sage, she tries to do that, but afterwards, she has the courtesy and curiosity asking, how did you survive, or why are you fighting back? She spends a chunk of the game controlling the many small to tall robots around the islands to more or less tell Sonic to piss off, but eventually changes her thought process. And it's from one word that I mentioned a minute ago that defines her: curiosity. It's one of the main driving forces for Sage's character. I mean, she was just activated less than 24 hours ago, so it makes sense that she would want to learn everything. And the major thing her programming and numbers couldn't understand was emotion. More specifically, the idea of trust, friendship, and love. And after seeing those things from Knuckles, Tails, and Amy, she remembers her time with Eggman and begins to use those elements in her programming as best as she can. And there is a heartfelt moment with her when this does happen.
Such a beautiful friendship. A family born of love and not genetics. Everything I want. I wish I'd never seen this. It was so much easier accepting the future when they were simply enemies.
But it doesn't really land as big as it should. At least to me, it didn't. I get it, obviously. However, the problem is that it's supposed to be a big step in her arc because of the time she spent with Eggman in cyberspace. But you don't really get to see those moments. Eggman is in digital hell for most of the game, which you don't witness much of, just here instead. I don't dislike the direction that was done with Sage, it just needed more time for that moment to have the real oomph they were trying to go for. Oh well. Even after all that though, I honestly like where her character concludes. You know, in the main story. And since I said it that way, I might as well talk about another story, or Final Horizon as it's called. Mainly because I want to keep the flow of this video a certain way and end on a more positive note, which means this segment ain't gonna be so positive. As the teens say, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I didn't enjoy Final Horizon, like, at all. The best way to describe my issues with it in a condensed manner is like this. Any issue I did have with the main story, in terms of gameplay exclusively, I could deal with them. In Final Horizon though, those problems are heightened and I don't like dealing with them. I'm at max rings here, so I'm just gonna give a lightning round here. A good number of the enemies are in New Game Plus mode because the game itself suggests that it's best to play Final Horizon after you beat the main story. But oops, you're at level 1 for everything and everyone again, so you're gonna get curb stomped. But then a star shower happens, do your usual thing, and then another oops, you're nearly maxed out on all stats, which allows you to eliminate any challenge by two-shotting those enemies now. And look, I truly do appreciate that Amy, Knuckles, and Tails are now playable after 15 years in a mainline game, but they feel so clunky to play. Amy is fine, albeit very floaty. Knuckles is and Tails can just break the game with the tornado. Okay then. And then, for a game that's more or less about doing things your own way, how and when you want, the freedom Final Horizon has an awful first impression by limiting you on who you play, when you play them, and what areas need to be done, and that's on top of picking whoever you do later. A good percentage of the map can't be explored by that character because it wasn't made for them. And man, oh man, these towers blow. Just everything about them. I hate how they are designed. You give Sonic multiple ways and skills to traverse horizontally and forward, but not so much upwards and vertically. And that still doesn't count for the last challenge being a Capcom-style boss rush that you need to be nearly frame perfect for everything. And the replacement for the final boss is jank as hell. And for that one person who is most likely going to say it, skill issue. And you know what? You're probably right. Final Horizon was definitely made for people who poured hours into the game's physics and combat. It's almost like a lost level scenario. And from a dude who doesn't mind a challenge every now and then, ooh, I gotta admit, this bested me. And it mainly just comes down to how the first chunk of Final Horizon throws you in the deep end, while also having you be ill-equipped for the time being. It's not a great opening, gotta be honest. Thankfully, oh so thankfully, it's all optional. It's not mandatory to beat the actual game, just to give you a different experience, and it's for sure going to be different. I did play the game on hard mode with my playthroughs, which before I knew it, you need to do for the real final boss in the main campaign. And while I'm in the main story, I'll stick to what I know best, which is fighting colossal-sized robots while having some of the best fucking music in the entire franchise. Holy to call! Without a doubt, just the absolute best aspect Frontiers does that is unparalleled to this day, it's the music. It goes without saying, but I'm still gonna write 2 paragraphs and more about it. God damn, they took hella notes when they made Infinite's theme from Forces and said, you know what? We can do this again, and probably more of it. They know his song bangs because it was a placeholder for when you fight Giganto. All of the Titan songs are just perfect, and that's of course all happening as you're absolutely beating the bricks and more off of these giants. I heard that you fully got to play as Supersonic in these moments, but bro, actually seeing it from your own screen and having full control of him like you do in the open world, seeing Supersonic be this practically unstoppable, undefeatable force is immaculate. I always get a smile on my face when you get that final emerald and transform and go to town. get a golden variant of the Phantom Rush, stomp better than an Italian plumber, deflect massive lasers, chase and kick missiles back at them, parry and toss them around like a ragdoll, fucking use the side loop on the knight and watch them get crucified by light, do it again, and launch an arrow from the heavens above, and then you take their own gargantuan sword and cut them in half with it while Find Your Flame is playing. Holy shit, is this cool! But let's also give some appreciation and recognition to the other tracks. The Guardian themes are also a bit of a head bop, especially both versions of Spider, and the other biggest contributors being the cyberspace and island themes. As ambivalent as I am with these stages, some of the tracks that play while you are here, not too bad. Personal favorites, 1-7, 2-4, 3-2, and of course, 1-2, flowin'. Though once you exit those levels, you're greeted to the overworld theme. And the detail I like is how the longer the game goes on, the themes get a bit heavier due to Sonic's condition getting worse. Starting from the first island, the music goes from a very calm, tranquil piano. I love this piece, because all things considered, tracks like these are kind of rare in the series. This even goes for the title screen. You'll have the standard orchestral and more peaceful versions of the main themes from each game, but just having songs like this during normal gameplay is what makes it stick out in my mind. But by the time of the fourth island, where Sonic's at his breaking point, the music is much more dire and dramatic. You are slowly dying here. But once he's set back on track and fully knows what to do, the final island song is a mix of that dread slowly creeping up, but then those 88 keys from the monochromatic instrument reassure that you got this. The fight is not over yet. Sonic is still fighting before he possibly meets his end. The end. Let me go through the mindset I originally had when approaching the climax of this game. Business as usual when fighting Supreme, not as epic compared to the previous fights, but still cool. However, if you're in hard mode, you'll get the true final boss. This purple moon? Okay. This cyberspace shooting segment. What? Credits? That was it? What? I didn't know how to feel about all that. But then a couple of days roll by and I start to look back, pay more attention, and do some research on whatever the hell that was. And my personal conclusion is, I fucking love the end. I truly adore when I tell my friends that the only villains that Sonic fights are Eggman or some Eldritch Devil entity. And well, yeah, the end falls on the second half. One thing I do like is how it's present throughout the whole game. Because when put in the category of final boss monsters in the series, they're just kind of that. Basically a giant animal that could destroy the planet when upset. The end, though, is sentient. They're aware of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and they can talk. And they use that to their advantage. The last all-powerful demon that could talk was Mephiles, and look what happened. Within the first 20 minutes of the game, they more or less make themselves known. For myself, and maybe for some other players, you probably just think, okay, neat, voice in the sky tells you how to play the game, whatever. Omo-chan must be taking a break. But then you find out you were helping it all along, all the puzzles, all the ancient technology, all the fights, and what cyberspace was doing to everyone else was for its intended purpose. It wasn't made to keep people out, it was made to keep something in. And now it's free and is about to take that freedom from everyone else. Though my absolute favorite thing about the end is the comparison to Sonic. I may have been barely getting C's and B's in geometry, but damn, I love me some parallels. It's pretty surprising that I'm only now talking about the titular character, mainly because everyone else in this adventure got some development or fine-tuning, and of course Sonic gets his fair share. I mean, look at him just run around.
Alright, I'm listening.
Whoa, deep voice. Okay, I'll quickly mention this. Yeah, Roger Craig Smith was straight up told, we're going deep for this. And I like it. I think it's good. It for sure gives you the idea and feeling that not only is the story a bit more serious, the characters also play into that by sounding and talking like they're a bit older and seasoned, and Sonic is the prime example of that. But other than his voice, he's the same dude given a pretty big refinement to his actual character, as in, say compared to the few prior games, he's not just a joke machine or awkwardly reaffirming he's the good guy. He's cool, true, and blue. He shows his confidence, can snap and bounce back verbally or physically, knows when to slow down for the right people, but can still be impatient. If he does something wrong, he'll do his best to make it right. He's someone who's true to himself, frees the win, and keeps moving forward. And that's why the N is a suitable and perfect villain for him. Because what the N can and wants to do is the opposite of what Sonic strives for. Let me answer the question some of you probably have if you don't know it already. Why a big fuck you purple moon? Why? So the game's director, Mirio Kishimoto, stated that only Sage and Sonic see it as a big moon. Everyone perceives it differently, the way they would personally imagine what death looks like. So you're telling me this thing is possibly the embodiment of death? Yup. And to properly explain why I came to love this, we gotta go back in the day, to the 90s. And Knuckles. Stick with me. Knuckles was purely made to be Sonic's opposite. His little Nike or swoosh symbol on his chest is supposed to represent the moon. So if that's the case, that means Sonic represents the sun, with his round belly, I'm guessing. He's even described as being warm, specifically. But this goes further with what Sonic does and what he stands for. Since day one, Sonic has been about freedom. Not just for his small woodland buddies, but even for the trees and flowers around him. He's on the side of nature, and he fights a rotund man with all the mechs, robots, and ships who tries to oppress and destroy all that, for his own amusement park. Sonic expresses to those around him to live life. Even if they don't know how to do it, he'll help them. He wants them to be free, themselves. Doing all of that allows them to have these memories and moments you can look back on. He gives them the will to push forward, to live. He gives them life, and they revolve around him. He is the sun. This even goes towards Super Sonic, that golden aura he obtains from being so unapologetically himself and pure-hearted, that allows him to tap into this power that shines as bright as a star. And this is pinpointed in Final Horizon as well. All the trials and challenges Sonic marches through was an attempt to see if he could use cyber corruption in a helpful manner, and when that moment came for greater power, he was able to use it, because he had a pure heart. That's a form that's ascended past Super Sonic. Or you could just call it Super Sonic 2. It should have been Hypersonic. This even goes hand in hand with the wind aesthetic he also has. If you also didn't know, wind itself is because of the sun. When he needs to move and get going, he'll be there swift and fast as the winds that follow him. The end visually looking like a moon doesn't stop there. The end is just that. Once it's there, that's it. There's no more. So, Sonic sees it as this moon, which is pretty much this giant orbiting colorless rock. That's what the world they live on could become. Lifeless, dark, dull. Sonic's his best when he's able to run around and do what he can. But the end is stuck in this eternal, never-ending virtual dimension, but uses it to their advantage to free themselves and corrupt Sonic in the process. And the blue blur can only take so much before the worst happened to him. Not death, being immobile. That's what he's all about. Running, freedom, moving forward. And this being who's trying to get revenge, a concept that's only born from past events and negative memories, keeps him from moving forward. It's technically in the game as well, but it wasn't fully integrated. Once Sonic reaches this point, he's supposed to have a hard time with his memories in mind.
This is for my friends. This is for my friends, remember? My name is?
The game pushes this notion that the memories you have make you, well, you. It's your history, the knowledge you've gained, the changes that occur. The tokens you collect are memory tokens, and in meta sense, it also explains why the characters make the illusions they do, because it's a part of their memories. The past is what shaped and helped them grow. It's also just straight up said that the cyberspace stages are from Sonic's memories. Amy wants to see the Coco live the rest of their lives reminiscing. Knuckles recalls his voyages on Angel Island with Sonic, and Tails remembers the emotional battles he took to be who he is today. Hell, this even goes for Eggman. The most detail you get from him are from his memos, his recordings of what he's seen in cyberspace, and Sage finally gets a RAM upgrade and has enough memory for her to understand what, why, and how everybody is doing. Cyber corruption is what stops all of that though. You won't have your memories. You can't move to create new ones. There's nothing natural about it. They give an illness that causes stillness, which, by the way, I don't think it's a coincidence that the soundtrack is titled Stillness in Motion. The End and Sonic. They used the highest form of technology they could to stop the guy who's trying to keep things all natural to the planet. However, they ultimately couldn't, because he had help. By now, Sage was able to be on the same page as Sonic, working together to tackle this blinking abyss. The tone, the parallels, using both the power of cyberspace and the Chaos Emeralds to get rid of this foe. The End's monologue of standing no chance, while Super Sonic doesn't even bother to talk back, focusing on getting the job done. And the music, oh my God, the music, absolutely brilliant. And this shot right here, Super Sonic being a shooting star himself, when before he saw all the colorful comets rain down and light up the night sky, all from the Starfall Islands, he finally becomes one himself and grants the ancients one wish: destroy the End. Magnificent. From all that, it may be a hot take, but I love this final boss. And honestly, I like the ending too. It has a bittersweet feel to it at first, but I do think it fits the overall theme. Eggman may look a bit melancholy, but Sage is still technically alive and well, so all is good, along with Sonic and friends flying off to their next journey. Boy, what a finale. And I know even though I went through all of that and honestly poured my heart into it, there's of course going to be that group of people that will inevitably disagree. And that's fine. Ultimately, I'm just some dude most likely talking through your phone about something I like. Nothing to really get upset over. But hear this part. I'm not going to ignore those flaws I mentioned way before. They're still there and are always going to be there every time I play this game. But I don't absolutely hate any of it. And that's mainly because of the amount of genuine effort put into the game. Yeah, sure, you can not enjoy the game for what it is. Neat. However, something you can't deny is the amount of actual passion put in it. Sonic as a franchise honestly wasn't doing too hot before Frontiers. Yeah, sure, there was the movie, but look what they were originally gonna go with before the whole internet had to step in. Game-wise, 3D specifically, so you can't just say Mania and leave, well, there was Forces, not great, Boom, terrible, and Lost World, just okay. And the Sonic 4 project ended abruptly because they also didn't hit the mark there. Quite frankly, it was looking pretty fucking bad, guys. Yuki Takanashi, Mirio Kishimoto, Ian Flynn, Tomio Otani, Tyler Smith, the Sonic team and everybody, they pretty much pulled out as many stops as they could to get this game running. Because if you couldn't tell, this game was pretty much a last-ditch effort. And if it didn't give them the winning home run, that might have been it for Sonic Team as a whole. Seeing how they're trying to cater to both Western and Eastern sides, the shonen Dragon Ball Z level fights with kick-ass AMV music that was abundant in the 2000s and for Sonic specifically, and the push for more Japanese attention with One OK Rock, Evangelion influences, including the original voice actress for Sage. I guess it's from an artistic standpoint that I can't bring myself to dislike what they've done. They didn't want to just make another product and hope for the best. They sincerely wanted to create a project, a game, a piece of art really, for the world to see. And honestly, it gives me a better appreciation for Frontiers as a whole. Just saying it sucks and ending the discussion there doesn't advance the discussion in any meaningful way. Sonic Team, and even Sega, sometimes, are willing to listen. Again, if people didn't speak up about the movie, we wouldn't be getting a fourth one. This even goes as far as Region Case Art. Thanks, by the way. And a handful of issues people didn't enjoy are improved in Shadow Generations. So they are listening. Most of those reasons I listed off is why Frontiers sold as well as it did and helped the franchise. And I'm not saying that sales are indicative of quality. It's because of those sales the series isn't in the dirt right now. And I mean, I just can't hate that. How could I? Frontiers is an interesting game for sure. It's honestly this era's unleashed from the number of similarities they share. That honest drive to want to push the series to do something different and new, putting all of it into one big gamble and seeing if it works, well, to me, I think it worked, and I love it for that. I too want Sonic to always have the best, and hopefully it gets better from here. I no longer want killer deadlines for games, the perfect future, a wish to be fulfilled for many, the desire to run, move forward, and create new memories. I want them to be blue, true, and not just cool, way past cool. And that is the review for Sonic Frontiers. I know it got a little, I guess you could say, preachy by the end, but I wanted to at least give some insight and behind the scenes reason as to why this game pretty much ended as it did. I could have gone a little bit more in depth about the whole they didn't have as much time as they needed, like deadlines and all that, but granted, that happens with almost every Sonic game, so it's like the sky is still blue, so nothing really different there. I also got a new outro from this point on. The art was wonderfully done by Suta. You can find them through these socials that are on the screen right now, if you so please. Great artist, very patient, and open to changes. If you ever need any art done or want to see some cool art, hit them up. Also, slight forewarning, has some not safe for work art stuff there, so, you know, don't look at it while you're at work. Duh. Anyways, thank you once again, Suta. Go check them out. But, yeah, I don't think I really have any more to say. If you still couldn't probably tell, yeah, I fucking like this game. It's cool. Like, I love it. It's neat and everything like that. All that fucking fun stuff. I don't think there's anything else to be said. Alright? It's fun. I had fun. But, you know how it goes. Comment down below on what you think. Thank you for watching. That's greatly appreciated, of course. Have a great day. Have a great night. Everything else you know to do. Bye.